Hello, guys. Rainey has something that she wants to bring up that's for our discussion today. So, Rainey?
Okay. So we all know about, of course, the shootings yesterday, which I think hadn't been reported when we met Sunday morning. Um, what I noted yesterday was I took the kids to the Young Museum, which is kind of like the big museum in San Francisco, and it was one of the first times that I recall being racially profiled and followed in a facility and called out or felt singled out with the boys. As I was telling mom, there was just a sense of, don't do that and stay out of trouble and we got your eyes on you. I said there was a guard that seemed to be following us room to room, and at one point and glared at the boys because I had started to move to another room and they had stopped to look at a picture. And one of the more striking things about all this was that VJ told me, about halfway or so through the visit, not quite halfway, that he felt unsafe and that he felt nauseous and queasy. And I don't think he noticed the guard following us. I did. And I kept asking him later, why do you feel unsafe? Can you tell me? Because the paintings, some of them were, bright and abstract. And there was one called The Scream, which was a little bit, but he said, no, it wasn't. I don't know why. I just didn't feel safe. And so I thought that was just really crazy. I mean, you think about San Francisco and California, and it's so open, and it's so this. And I remember taking all my cousins to the museum in South Carolina when we were younger, and I was never followed by a guard. And here I have my two sons with me, and being aggressively followed and observed, and in a place which is supposed to be so enlightened. So that was my thing that I wanted to share, that experience, and also VJ picking up on the feeling of being unsafe and unwelcome.
I thank you for that, first of all. And I do have thoughts on that. However, I would like to first see if there are others who would like to speak to that prior to what I want to say. Anyone would like to speak to that? Don't be shy.
It's Ron. I I love kids. Kids are so honest, and the innocence of them, and just the love in their hearts, and it's amazing though how sensitive they can be. And he didn't dismiss what he felt. He didn't, he didn't know why, but he recognized that these aren't. It's an abnormal circumstance here, and I don't. Even though he wasn't visually able to uh, discern what it was, he recognized it nonetheless, and that to me is beautiful, and I hope he never loses that. Uh, the other thing is the it goes to show you, we talk about these things all the time, but just how real energy is. And sometimes in those situations, I think it was Barbara a few weeks ago talked about being uncomfortable in a restaurant. But sometimes in situations like that, you can almost feel it. You can almost cut it with a knife, the tension and what is felt there. So I sorry, and that you had to go through that, and the kids had to go through that. Uh, it's just where we are right now, and to me, it speaks that we're on the right path. There's a lot of stuff that we're dealing with, and racism and hatred, and bringing balance to the earth, and all these things are wrapped up into what you just described. So, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Questions or comments, or responding to what Rainier mentioned?
I want to add to Pastor. I had to go back this morning and apologize to VJ because yesterday, I mean, this whole thing put me in the mood of being frustrated and anxious myself. So I didn't really acknowledge his feelings in the way that I should have. So this morning I had to apologize to him and to tell him it was okay to feel that and thank him for sharing it with me, that I was sorry that I didn't pay as much attention to what he was feeling, or at least and embrace it the way that I could have. I was definitely more in the correcting mom, be on your best behavior kind of attitude. Don't show out in front of these white people kind of attitude, instead of really acknowledging where he was. So.
And that in itself is racism, and we do it all the time with our kids. Don't show out in front of these white folks, and white kids be doing twice as much, and it's cute. That's something that we have to deal with within ourselves as well. What I think, is there anyone else before I address what Rainey shared with us?
Just Barbara, good evening, everybody. Just a couple more things that Rainey shared. Specifically, the boys were doing children's stuff. Like there was a revolving door that they hadn't been through before. So they went through it, each individually. And then when Rainier determined that wasn't where she wanted to be, they came back through that revolving door individually. And that's where this guard or whoever it was started looking at them and saying, okay, children shouldn't be playing in the doors. And then there were I think Rainier called them places to sit down, stools, whatever, Rainier.
Benches, yeah.
Benches. And where she had to I had to help one of the boys tie their shoes. And the other boy was laying down on the bench. And the fellow came over and said, what, you can't play on the bench, something like that?
No shoes on the bench. No shoes
on the bench. So they were doing children's stuff. So later on, what Rainier said was she responded to them later on that night by writing a review and sharing her concerns about this place, seemingly adults paid for, but the children could come free. And she shared how this is not a child-friendly atmosphere, let alone an atmosphere that I feel comfortable in if someone is following me and that kind of stuff. So what I said to her was I would be surprised if somebody responded to her, but also respect them for having a little courage to do so. When the reasonable expectation would have been someone who got this review who should have responded immediately and said, I'm sorry you felt this way. We are a museum that's open to the public, and we want your children to feel comfortable here, blah, 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 blah. We will do our best to going forward to ensure that children have feel this environment of welcoming, something to that effect. But I said to Rainier, I'd be surprised if somebody responded to her. But she did, in fact, respond. And so I'm going to be curious as to whether or not she gets a response herself.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else to add to that, Rainier?
No, nothing that comes to mind now.
Okay.
Just the blatant, feeling of unwelcomeness,
I too, with Ron, am sorry that you and the kids had to go through that. However, there was always value in every experience. And I also believe that our deep desire to bring to the surface racism in all of its forms played a major role in that. And I do not think it was coincidental or arbitrary that your children were chosen for that type of response or interaction. I believe that it had to be the children of someone who are in search of truth and someone who is doing everything they can to understand the flows of energy and how to repurpose them. What you said was you were surprised at that because of the openness in California. And I believe that because of our desire to transform this world, your presence there is what attracted that response. Why? Because of what we are doing on the East Coast and what we are doing in conjunction with the West Coast. I feel like what we are doing in conjunction with the West Coast is the very thing that opens the way, the doorway for racism can be shown. California is no exemption from racism, especially Northern California. We know that. But this gives us opportunity, not to pause, but it gives us opportunity to meet in the middle, so to speak, with our desires for this change. I do not believe also, Rainier, that it is coincidental that the shootings in California and in Buffalo, New York took place on the same days. I don't believe that that's coincidental either. I do believe that the reactions that people are having to the shirts and the calls are different in that they're saying, if you don't address racism, don't tell me you're sorry. Talking heads on the news are saying words matter. If the Republican leadership would speak out against white superiority, white supremacy, things would be different. Those type things have not been spoken as broadly as they are being spoken now. In regards to the interaction that you guys had, you had an opportunity to go off on somebody and you didn't. You actually have brought to bear the energy of change in the midst of racism, which is existing in the midst of one of the quote unquote most open cities in the world. If it happens in San Francisco, we know that it's 10 times that any place else. So why did the boys have to go through that? We have increased the sensitivity. Vijay went through that because of the sensitivity that we have created. What am I talking about? We have created a greater sensitivity to the energy flows in this earth realm. And one of the things that has contributed to that and greatly is our in-depth discussions of melanin, which is a conductor of energy and as well as energy itself. Melanin, the energy that brings to it those things that are good for humanity. And one of the things that I see having been drawn to it was the guard following and the statement that the guard made, because it's good for humanity. It gives us opportunity to repurpose that energy. The review that you wrote, I do believe wholeheartedly that the review that you wrote is energy that has been injected into that community. And I think it's far more than just a review. I think it is a statement. I think it is a divine message that's being placed into the heart of what people call change in California. Because if you look, yes, that's racism. However, San Francisco is different than the cities in the rest of California in terms of people seeing it as being an open city and an embracing city. So it had to happen there. And the righteousness of your review had to penetrate the hearts of those in San Francisco, knowing that that energy is not going to sit still in San Francisco or at that museum, is going to take effect, not just in California, but is going to become an umbrella for change in this nation, as well as some other things that that we have done, that we have said, and based upon the experiences that we have encountered. I know I've probably said a lot, but are there any questions or comments about that? Or can you see what I'm making every effort to say?
I see that, Pastor. You talked about how because of where we stand and energy we have, that things are attracted to us. And it's just interesting to me to see that come to bear and how it's coming to bear, especially with the kids, because there's issues with Joshua and what's going on with him at school. But it does help me to prepare myself for it, as opposed to just thinking that it won't, this can never happen to me, And I think that was part of what, Christianity taught us is, if you do what's right, then bad things won't happen, right? You'll have money, you'll have whatever. And that's what a part of my faith that I have to let go of as well, is that I'm shielded somehow, because that's not the way to deal with it. If I'm shielded, I'm not going to deal with it, right?
And right. And the shield that you are covered with now is really impenetrable. Nothing can get through that shield except what the universe desires. With the shield of religion and Christianity, it was cloaked with holes everywhere, so anything could penetrate it. And that is one of the reasons that people's faith is shaken so easily. That is one of the reasons that people vacillate about whether or not they believe what they've been taught to believe. People talk one thing at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, and it's a totally different thing later on that evening. So I do believe that the umbrella that covers you is so different, and that is the reason you were able to respond the way you did. And sometimes a nonverbal response is a response. So, but again, I thank you for sharing it. And Barbara, thank you for filling in the holes also, so that we could get a picture of what was happening there. Any other questions or comments? Or is there anyone else who sees what I'm trying to explain here?
It's Ron again. I see what you're trying to explain. I see something else too. My mind goes back to Isaiah chapter 45. The Lord thy God says, "I create light and darkness, and I, create good and evil." And I know I just messed that up how it's really written, but that to me puts things on a spectrum, and maybe all these things we talked about the history of this country and the presidency, and Pandora's box has been open, and all these things have to rear themselves so that they can be exposed. And part of that exposure is recognizing who we are and recognizing that you are that covering, that umbrella. So if you talk about, the good and the evil, the light and the darkness, what that is saying, at least what I think it's saying, part of what it is saying is you are responsible for this. If you see it, if it happens out there, and you are the enlightenment, you are the Elohim, then it or is the energy that you partly are responsible for. And I'm kind of not saying that right, but because it looks like when we think about good, you think about evil as just being damned and nothing's going to come good of it. But you are the part of that, the transformation of that. So that's what I see when we encounter these things, as that's part of the things that has to be transformed, and we are right in the middle of that. And if somebody can clean that up, I'd appreciate it. But I just don't. I know these things aren't coincidences, and they're attached to us for a reason. So.
Excuse me. I see that, Ron, that verse in particular, as our Creator saying to us that there are no extremes that escapes me. I have brought all of the extremes into existence and everything in between. And that in itself tells me that there is purpose in the extremes that exist. And how we not just approach, but how we embrace these extremes determines on how mankind proceeds from that point. And I do believe that the procession of mankind from that point is best served when we are able to see the extremism, the extreme of God, same time embrace it, embrace it in a manner that will have empathy for those who are caught up in it, embrace it in such a manner, bring it to a place of order, a place of enlightenment. And that we cannot lose sight of, because we have been shown that the universe, that our Creator, is not going to change anything without our input, without our desires, and without us embracing who we are. That's just not going to happen, because the Creator told us what to do. We are to serve as rulers. We are Elohim, and we rule as Elohim does. And that's with loving kindness. That's with understanding. That's with recognizing what people are and knowing that they need to be in a different place based upon the kingdom principles. The guy who did the shooting in Buffalo, I have empathy for him. 18-year-old who who sat at home on the computer and binged on racist doctrine. It is a hole in the heart of the African community, yes. And this hole has been there, and the bleeding has not stopped. However, I also see that what he did is a blight on his community. There's a different type of bleeding. There is a destruction of the youth in that community because they are using the vulnerability of youth to impress upon them that they are superior because of their skin color. And if we look at the reality of it, it is projection. The very thing that themselves they project to us. And I am convinced that there are those who are the enforcers of the racist rules and the makers of them understand who we are, like Hawley, the guy who graduated from Harvard, Yale rather, knows, that Kennedy from Louisiana knows who we are. What do I mean by that? They understand the effects of melanin. They know the power of melanin. However, if I can convince you that you are powerless, you will never use that power. And the reason I do believe that they're making every effort to keep us from being aware of that inherent power is because they are seeing us as they see themselves, thinking that we would seek vengeance when in essence, only thing they hear is forgiveness. So there are a multiplicity of approaches to what transpired this weekend. And though I was not able to see the moon because of the cloudiness, I embraced the energy of it. And I do believe, as I mentioned yesterday, that this is we are going to see a settling of anxieties. We're going to see a change more visibly than what we have seen in the past. And we're going to begin to experience that change, not in horrifying ways, but in ways that will help us to see that what we are projecting, and that is loving kindness, is taking effect. And that is part of that sensitivity. If he had not been sensitive to loving kindness, he could not have felt hate. He would not have felt unsafe. Thank you. Questions, comments? Does all that make sense?
Yes. This is Audrey. I wish Richard was on because you and I were talking yesterday. He was saying he's reading something from this Native American guy who is, I think his name is Mark Charles or something like that. But he's kind of he's a spiritual person. And he was saying how really white people are also suffering a form of traumatic stress. And he calls it it's PITS, perpetually induced traumatic stress from all the things they have done to other people. And it seems to me that you're kind of saying that because they are in effect destroying themselves. And with all these young kids that are doing these things and their parents, grandparents looking on and being shocked, they kind of have to deal with it, but they kind of starting to see what their own attitude and their own willingness to deny it all. They're kind of seeing what it's doing to their kids and grandkids. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes perfect sense. The destruction, Audrey, to piggyback on what you said, I read an article that said it compared Democrats and Republicans to the death toll from COVID. In the places where 60% of the people, they were 3 times likely to die from COVID, 60% of the people who voted for Biden. That seems benign, but it isn't. They also wrote in that article that the majority of the deaths were in nursing homes and red states. That speaks volumes. That speaks to self-destruction. That speaks to being so caught up in your anger, your hatred, until you're actually dying by suicide and don't even realize it. At first glance, my feelings about that were, well, that means that they're going to have less people to support them. But when I thought about that statement that I made within, I had to actually forgive myself for even thinking that. Why? Because forgive them, Father, they know not what they're doing. Don't condemn them, forgive them, restore them to where they were or where they were supposed to be prior to this attitude. Let's go back to the beginning and make everything new again, Nicodemus. Let's understand what was intended from the beginning. That's how I view that article. That's how I view what you were saying, Audrey. That's how I view this 18-year-old and those who support him. Look at the young man who shot those 2 white guys. Or was it Missouri? Was he the young boy? And he was acquitted. Am I right?
Minnesota, I think.
Minnesota. Okay, I know one of those them. Anyway, what happened is this kid has dropped off the face of the earth. Why? I do believe that he's becoming now to a place of understanding the veracity of what he did. He was too immature to understand the veracity of what he was doing. And they encouraged not only him, but others to do the same thing, because the federal government did not bring a charge against him for illegally transporting a weapon across state lines. The state government did not punish the parents for access they gave him. Neither did they arrest him for illegally possessing a weapon. This encourages the young to do this. I do believe that he had no clue in terms of his processing what he was doing. He had no clue as to the end game. He had no end game. And I do believe that right now, he is in the stage of processing what happened, and that's one of the reasons we don't hear from him. And I do also believe that either he's going to pop up on a right-wing site and run for office, or he's going to seek public forgiveness and make public retribution for what he did. I do not believe, is going to be anything in between that. I do believe it's going to be one or the other. So that in itself is destruction to the community, to their community, and the heck of it is we are obligated to go into that heap of rubbish and build something from it. And the something that we are obligated to build from it is character. Building that character through the wisdom of loving kindness. Building character through forgiveness. Building character by embracing the essence of who we are. Building character knowing that when we talk about being highly melanated people, we are talking about we are already one with the universe, because that's who brought this human or this physical entity into existence. And understanding that this melanin gives us experiences that we view as being bad and good. It gives us experiences so that we will know what to change, what to desire change. And it also gives us experiences that we feel deeply inside of us. I'm saying that highly melanated people feel at a deeper level than less melanated people. And I'm not talking about individually, I'm talking collectively now. That is the reason that I think it was you, Audrey, talking about how you felt. And this thing keeps happening over and over again. And Sheldon response spoke to being able to have the feeling of anger towards what's happening, along with having the feeling, the emotions of loving kindness directed toward the perpetrator. That's who we are. And the more we understand about the melanin, the more we are going to understand about Elohim. And the more we understand about Elohim, the more equipped we are to foster change in any place that change is warranted, inclusive of our communities, inclusive of our individual beings. And the day will come when we want the community, and the community will be all of ours. And that's the end goal for the globe, that we live in a global community. Thank you. Questions or comments?
Well, I see Richard is on, so maybe he can explain a little more about this this Mark Charles and what he was saying about perpetually induced trauma syndrome.
Oh, I'm being invited on? Okay. I just turned it on, so you're catching me a little cold here. What, Pastor Richard, you were responding to that video, I guess I sent?
No.
No, just
No.
responding to just
I was
questions and about the incident in Buffalo and that kind of thing.
Well, but what Audrey's alluding to, I don't know if it's pertinent to this or not, because I don't know where you are exactly in the conversation of this event. But I've been reading, I've stumbled across a Navajo, I guess he was he's less so an active pastor now, but pastor and activist, who among other things was talking, of course, about the right of discovery and all that it's created, all the harm, I guess you'd say, to say it simply, in this country. But anyway, within that larger kind of conversation, which I think is, for me anyway, it's very helpful, new and revealing. He talks, of course, about PTSD and a related acronym and concept that I can't remember the name of the woman who wrote the book, called PTSS, post-traumatic slavery syndrome. But he also talks about how we can't have a conversation. We can only yell at each other until we understand also the other side of the equation, which would be, I guess, the trauma subconsciously to the perpetrator. And he expands what's a growing definition of a new acronym. I thought I gave all those up when I got out of the military, but heck no. Anyway, it's called PITS. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, PITS means, it's a hard one to swallow. Perpetuation induced traumatic stress. And it was originally noticed from people who were essentially in slaughterhouse kinds of work environments, particularly veterinarians who had to kill, euthanize young kittens and puppies because they had no owners, they couldn't be fed, things like that. And I think also people who had to be slaughtering pigs and other animals like that, just with that sense of these are harmless creatures and yet this is what's being done to them and I'm participating in this. So this Mark expands that to basically say part of our national trauma, and trauma, the early stages of trauma include denial, and why we can't have a discussion. We don't understand, I would say, for the perpetrators, let's say white people, how subconsciously the guilt and everything else that's associated with coming to understand what the history of our country has occasioned. But until there's some recognition of that, respect for that, it's going to be very hard to have meaningful discussions and find a new community. Anyway, that's what that is, which I found rather interesting, and I'm sure you could say it other ways, but just, it's one of those things that you might have thought about before, and then it just, his lectures just brought it back up again. And in my own case, if it's not unfair and it's okay for me to speak openly about my sense of myself, and I don't want to impose that, but anyway, I felt very uncomfortable being who I am and being in my skin, I would say, from my latter high school years on up, because I was beginning to learn all the things that were going on and had gone on in the world around me that I guess I had been protected from until that time. And I never really had sometimes it's nice to be able to have a what's the word, structure or something to contextualize what that range of ill at ease and feeling, how that can be characterized. So to me, this is a term that I find useful. I suppose you could say it's sort of like a box in which I can put a lot of my experiences and my reaction to them, my feelings about them. I never had a Black friend until I went to college. Didn't know anything about that. I had a negative experience in high school in Columbus, Georgia, where I met two guys in the parking lot and they were talking about something called nigger knocking. And I just hold all those things in because I know how horrible they are. And it's not who I wanted to be, and it's not who I wanted the world around me to consist of. But when you start to step into it and learn, and then of course, coming to know you all and listening to your stories and many people before you about direct and indirect experiences, both threatening and unsettling, how do you hold all that and yet not find it eventually working into your being to make you feel guilty? And then we had these wonderful folk expressions like, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, which is, it can be pretty tough on some people, particularly if you're still learning what the problem is. And then that's probably one reason, because I also had the opportunity that I couldn't find myself comfortable settling in the United States so much, and I wanted to go back overseas because I had a more romanticized notion of that experience. And somehow, and yet I was older and more mature and aware, and I came to see a lot of those things in other countries and cultures. But I guess because they weren't quite so close to home, personal experience, if you want, personal history or sense of personal history, they were not easier for me to ignore. Somehow it just made it a bit easier to understand and learn, and made me feel freer to ask questions to learn more about it. And I had developed some close friendships as a result of that. My reaching toward the other person opened them to me. But anyway, I'm sure I said too much because I've just been sitting down here overthinking this and trying to put all these personal experiences. And I've not talked like this before, I think maybe ever with this group. But anyway, that's what that concept is about. It's still sort of being explored, but this Navajo fellow is the only one who's really taken that definition to that point, expanded it, if you will, to that point. Now, I'm sorry if it's not really germane to the conversation, but I guess Audrey asked if I'd say something about it, so there it is.
Thank you, Richard. It is germane to the conversation. And I've not heard you speak quite this way before either. However, I do hear what you're saying. And I do also believe that we are often, as a people, described as being emotional people. And we are not numb to what has happened to us or what happens to other people. However, with white people, there is a numbness. You have to be numb to be able to walk into a grocery store parking lot and start shooting people just because of what color they are. You have to be numb, and without feelings to make any effort to justify that. In order for anyone to be a white supremacist and feel that he or she is superior to anyone who's not their color, there is a numbness there that is devoid of emotions. And that translates not just towards those who don't look like them, but also infectious with family. What I see
Pastor,
is, yes,
could you go back? You're going,
yes,
you keep going in and out.
okay. What about now?
You
Am I good?
sound stronger now, yes.
Okay, I don't know where I should start again. However, I was talking about the numbness of people who are able to let someone or to shoot people simply because of the color of their skin, and feel good about what they did, and have other people to applaud them for having done it. The events that took place over the weekend are events that were a precursor to the energy flows of the blood moon. And I also believe that we are going to have more conversations than less in regards to the projection of white people towards people of color, mainly African people. we are going to have more discussions, more in-depth discussions about melanin itself, which speaks to melanated people, or highly melanated people, I should say. We're going to understand the value of that melanin, and we're going to understand the power of it. And if you can see in your mind's eye a cluster of dark dust, let's say black dust, and if you follow it there's a tail on it, and if you follow it from the largest portion where it is completely black, and you follow it to the end, you will find gradations that comes from that ball of melanin or dust. And those gradations that emanate from it cannot, honestly, with feelings and conviction, conclude that that black dust is inferior, is nothing. It is to be shunned and forced to be ashamed of its existence. You can't do that, in all honesty, when you know where you came from. Because without that dust, without that black dust, that melanin, no one would be here. And out of that came everyone else on this earth. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. And for those who you may run into who only believe you're talking about spiritual things when you mention Jesus and God and etc. We are talking about all the things that Jesus and the characters that are mentioned. We are talking about them, the things that we have been ashamed to talk about or made ashamed to talk about, are the very things that we need to look closely at. I had ministers to tell me that I raised questions about that Jesus they had over their pool in their churches. And they say it doesn't matter what color he is. And my response to that was, if it doesn't matter what color he is, how come you didn't pay him to look like you? It does matter because of what we have been indoctrinated with. All of these things are going to be discussed not for the purpose of educating, but for the purpose of revelation. And the revelation that we are getting in regards to this, it brings into action the energy forces that's necessary to repurpose the energy of anger and hatred and racism and misogyny and all the other stuff. So, well, let me stop here. Are there any questions or comments about that? And Richard, again, thank you.
I have something, Pastor. This is Rania again. My first one was, holy shit, Uncle Richard, did you just say the N-word? And then my second one was, as you were talking, Pastor, 23andMe, who I signed up with, had reached out to me to do this kind of interview. And I did it because you got like this $50 gift certificate. And one of them was on one of their tests, which was for melanoma and your predisposition to it. And I had gotten my results, but I forgot about them, and I didn't know why. So we're talking to the guy who shows me these two tests, and he shows me one's melanoma. And the way it reads is, people of your skin color don't usually get it, so we don't have enough data to say. And at first I thought, oh, okay, I guess I'm black, I'm protected, right? But there was a way you could change, as you're talking, you could change your race from black, African American to anything else, white, whatever. And there was one where it's other, I don't know. And he said, you know, you can change it to that to see what your actual percentage is. And so I did, and it had like a 12% or whatever. It was higher than nothing, or I don't know enough about your group to say. And I think that goes back to what you're talking about, this awareness of those systemic racist things, because that's a very generalized thing to do, right? Just to say, well, since you're African American or you're from Africa, you're not going to get melanoma because people who are Black don't. As you were talking, how many ways and times we do that, right? Is don't you worry about it, you know, you're okay. And there are folks who should be, right?
Yeah. Yes. There are people who should be. There are companies that produce melanated creams for white people who go out in the sun to protect them from the rays that are dangerous, so they can get tanned. That in itself is a subconscious desire to look like the very people you say you hate. That also speaks volumes. We are in a very precarious position right now. Either we keep moving forward with all diligence and say everything that needs to be said, discuss everything that needs to be discussed, reveal everything that needs to be revealed, or we get halfway down the road and bask in what we already have learned, what we've already been shown, and revert to what it was before we were shown anything. I do not believe that we can do that, because I hear the voice of Peter speaking to Jesus. What is it to go back to? We have nothing to go back to. What we left, we understand, was not temporal. It was non-existent. It was made up as we go. So there's nothing to go back to. Here we are. We're out here on this limb, and I've felt this personally myself many times. And there are those who saw the limb, and the tree falls and not the limb. That's how I see the place where we are now. We're between heavens and earth, meaning we're suspended between two consciousness. And that is that the human occupies. The human is not just earthbound, it's spiritually bound. The human is between the two worlds, because the human understands the physicality and is one with the earth and one with everything and everyone that's created. Yet it understands the essence of spirituality, the power of it, and the necessity to use it in a manner that's beneficial to everyone. And in that regard, we become the creators who bring this evilness to a place of enlightenment. The verse that Ron paraphrased earlier, the unripeness, we nurture it until it becomes ripened. And understanding that some of the fruit is lost, but it becomes, as Audrey said a few months ago, fertilizer for the other fruit to grow. And I've had some visions or dreams in the last 2 or 3 days where I saw things and they were interpreted for me. I understood that there were people from the other world sending a message in regards to some things that transpired before they left the body. and entered into the realm of the spirit. So rest assured that regardless of where we are, where we think we are in the place that we are supposed to be in. We no longer can talk about when we are embraced being Elohim. We are Elohim. That's already embraced. We are the arbiters of righteousness in the earth. That's who we are. And that is the reason we suffer for both sides. We have the pain, we have the empathy for both sides, understanding both sides, because that is the nature of our soul. We are the origin of everything on earth, life itself. And if we did not feel what we do, we did not have that experience of anger because someone did something or killed someone simply because of the color of their skin, we would not be who we are supposed to be. If we did not feel the pain of the family of the one who was killed, we would not be who we're supposed to be. Because all of it is painful. It is painful to look at a swath of society and see a group of people with no empathy whatsoever, who experience no emotions when it comes to people who don't look like them. That's painful for us because we are indeed our brother's keeper. We are the keeper of humanity. We are the repairers of the breach. There is absolutely nothing outside of our grasp in this earth and in the spiritual realm. We are being shown and given everything that is necessary for us to move from the thoughts that we have towards those who are perpetrators. Our righteousness in this earth is the only thing that's going to result in redemption, the price that must be paid in order to bring humanity to balance. This is not about the salvation that you were taught at church. This is not about the heaven that you were taught about in church. This is about delivering your deliverance. It is also about the deliverance of everyone else. Questions, comments? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Are there any questions or comments about it? Okay.
Just to say, to me anyway, the responsibility of that does not frighten me, I guess, or it as it once did, it doesn't. It's just something that I see and embrace now, and I guess the more you talk about it, the more revealing it is, and the more it makes sense. So,
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I don't know if I should be speaking about what Ron asked yesterday, but there's a lot, and I see connections to quite a bit that was said today. But like I said, it's a lot. And I'm actually still trying to synthesize it all, as well. I'm not sure if you want me to, I guess, try to address that now or start addressing it now, or wait until next time.
That's up to yourself. Do you feel what I feel? It might not be what you feel, because I'm thinking that you're leaning towards the next time. Am I right?
Yeah, because it's like I'm just, I guess, seeing and understanding all. I guess explain it, which I know you may be familiar with. I'm looking at this huge, I guess, picture in front of me, or a picture, I guess, that I am in the midst, and I'm trying to understand it in a language, so to speak, that can be explained. So, yeah.
Okay.
So that
We-
sounds good.
We'll follow the questions and hopefully end up there next time. You keep in mind, man, you asking someone who will teach 24 hours. Should we go on? Should we do that? So,
I know, because
Yeah.
I also know that if I start, there's no telling where it's going to go, or even how long that it may take as well, because there's so many different points. Like, I could reference darn near everything that was said today, but to actually explain it and make the connections are kind of far apart, even though I see them simultaneously together. And so I also want to make sure that I am doing it due justice in terms of actually communicating properly to the point where it is understood deeply.
okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that taking place. Okay.
Okay.
Is there anyone else?
I will say this
no.
to Rainy, right quick. Sorry, somebody was about to say something.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Shelton.
That which her son was using is what we were talking about in terms of his inner senses. It wasn't anything that he actually saw from his physical senses that would have intellectually gotten him to the point to be aware and feel that which was actually taking place. He sensed that totally from an internal standpoint, and communicated that to you. Immediately, that's what I thought in terms of what had actually taken place. I'm finished. I just wanted to point that part out, or make sure that it was seen by everyone who was listening.
Okay. Audrey?
Well, I'm trying to get my thoughts together here, but for me, this discussion today helps me understand better people like Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell. And I mean, it's like they're hurting too, which I never fully realized that. So they're hurting too, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know they probably don't know where it comes from, because they haven't allowed themselves to sit down and reflect and think about it. But they're hurting too. And part of the way they lash out or do stuff that hurts Black people is because of the hurt they are feeling that they don't know what to do with or how to deal with. So in a real sense, you do forgive because they don't know what they're doing. And that's kind of a revelation for me to come to that, because I
know.
just often feel like, I mean, they must know what they're doing. They must know. And then there's so much that's been done to Black folks that it's hard to get past our own hurt to see their hurt. So I guess I'm saying that I'm getting to a point where I can see it, and I can understand why the need to forgive.
And thank you. 'Cause we, over the years, I do believe that the Creator's been helping us through the pain so that we can be where we are and become deliverers. I do believe that you're correct in that they hurt, but they don't stop long enough to feel. They continue the journey of pain. They don't feel anything. It's common to them. So anyway, is there anyone else or questions about what Audrey said? And I'm sure that there are those of you who agree with having to work through our pain in order to see the pain of those who inflicted the pain on us.
Pastor, it's Ron. I had not considered the pain, but I too came to a place of awareness with what Audrey said, and made me think of something you talked about yesterday. Jesus on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They truly don't know what they're doing. They're not in a place where they can see that. And that was hard for me, because I'm looking at grown, educated men who have plotted to do the things that they're doing, and it was a hard place for me to come to see that on a spiritual level, on a human level, they have no idea what they're doing. And
same for me, Ron.
That hit me like, wow, how did you miss that? That seems so, so in your face, but I missed it. And it did. It kind of is like, wow. So yeah, you do reach a place where it's like, I feel sympathetic for them. I really see now what this is all about and the role that we are to play in this. Forgiveness is so real and it's so necessary, and that's why all this is playing out the way it is.
And Ron, I too had to journey through the same thing, and I understand the reason I had to take that journey. My journey started with, they do know what they're doing and they need to pay for it. That's Western education.
Okay.
Western education is based on greed, manipulation, and pain. Eastern mindset, Eastern education was for the purpose of bringing an awareness to those who were being educated as to who they are. If you look into the annals of history and see what happened in Timbuktu, the things that were taught in the Kushite kingdom, the things that were taught in Egypt, they were taught the philosophers were teaching them was the relationship to the universe, their oneness with the land. The whole concept of medicine was to keep the body functional so it could continuously house the spirit. Though that's far into our education system. And I have seen a huge change in the system since I was educated. We went to school to learn, and that was the main focus that was given to us from home. The generations after us go to school to make money. That's a Western mindset, and that is devoid of emotions. It's all about business. And how many times have you heard someone scam somebody, say it's just business, or take advantage of people and say it's business? Look at Bezos. He has enough money to feed everybody in the world, and still does not want to pay those who make that money for him a living wage. That's not an Eastern mindset. That's not. The Eastern mindset is that everyone is taken care of. So we are embracing the beginning. We are always at beginning, because our intent is to bring into this earth realm what was intended from the beginning. And peace, love and kindness, harmony was intended. However, we are the ones who have to make it happen. And that's what we are doing. Thank you, guys. Thank all of you who are on this phone, because I promise you, when we're on this phone, when we're on the Zoom call, wherever we are, I draw from all the energy that I can. Because my desire is to see as much as I can, receive all the wisdom, I give all the understanding possible, so we can have the spiritual experiences that's necessary to change humanity, so humanity can become human. That's it.
And
Pastor, I have one more request, if I may.
I'd like to make a comment before you shut everything off, but go ahead, Ron. Or
Okay,
question.
I want to back us up a bit when we convene next time. I'm still something in the eighth sense that I want to look at, and that is the role of dreams. Either as mentioned dreams, or was it Sheldon yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to go into it. I want to talk about the energy of dreams, especially if it has a relationship with memory. Is that one and the same? If dreams are just something different, but I know it has to have a role there. So just something we could, maybe it's a quick thought, and I know you had some insight on it as well, because you and I talked about it. So just something to think about the next time we come together. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Ron, that reminded me also then to, when you bring that up, mention pineal, melatonin, and melanin as well, because it's something that I saw as a connection today with that in inner senses as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, thank you. And I sort of apologize, I guess, if what I said didn't really fit with what you were talking. It's obviously something on my mind, and Audrey encouraged me to speak that, and I'm not saying anything bad about Audrey. It just, if in any way that was helpful, okay. I think it might have been more pertinent for the conversation we have with the California group, but okay. But this is totally different. I would take more joy and might even participate more in this discussion, these discussions with this group. And I see we're 19 people. If more often people would show themselves with the video. It may be just me, but I take pleasure in seeing who's talking, and it encourages me maybe to respond more, participate more fully. It's just, I don't know if other people feel something similar or not, but that's me. It's just too easy for me to get more and more distant when it's just, I'm staring at a white phone in a gray circle. So, okay, I just thought I'd say that before you hung up.
And, okay, and I don't want you to apologize for speaking something that needs to be spoken. Nothing happens unless it's supposed to happen.
Well,
Everything that you, it was pertinent to the previous discussion. Prior to you getting on, we
right.
pretty much laid, so,
Okay, well, I didn't know. I was coming in cold, but I trusted that Audrey would lead me to the right place. I certainly am not apologizing for what I said. It's just whether it was said in a way that was useful to a discussion that was ongoing. Okay,
right. Well, rest assured it was.
and the thing about turning your videos on occasionally, come on. I don't care if you're in your PJs and haven't shaved in a week. I enjoy seeing human faces from time to time. It makes it easier to stay in the conversation, but I guess this is the day I'm just expressing preferences and whatever. But anyway, think about it.
Thank you again. And we will give thought to it because I am one of those great people with a white phone.
Yes, you're number 188. That's the only way I can identify you right now. And I've forgotten who Sheldon is.
Anyone else?
Anyway,
Hey, Pastor, this is Rainey. Could I give you a call after this?
Yes.
Okay, and Uncle Richard,
I'll call
I
him.
didn't think you said anything untoward either, so I had to give you a hard time about that, but I thought it agreed.
Call my home number and
I didn't understand what you said, Rainer. You were breaking up, but okay.
Oh, sorry, I have a bad connection too. I said, I didn't think you said anything untoward either. I just had to give you a hard time, but I agreed. What you said was pertinent.
Oh, well, I mean, you heard what I said. I don't apologize for the content. I just apologize if it wasn't pertinent. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, no worries.
No,
Here.
the journey continues from Merida. Okay.
Rainey, did you hear me?
You said yes, right?
Okay, call me on the home phone.
Okay.
Okay. All righty, guys. I thank you for your presence, your comments, your input, the presence of your energy, all of that. Most appreciative for that. And we will see you on Zoom on Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And if there are questions, write them down or make a phone call and we'll do what we can to answer them, okay? Have a good evening.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
evening,
you.
y'all.
Thanks,
Everybody have a
everybody.
good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye, Sam.